Hey there, and welcome to a Mythic Jaina commentary from a balanced druid point of view. My name is Partlycloudy in game. I play on the Maelstrom on the EU region in the guild The Brigade. We're a two-night guild, and this is the world 52nd kill of Lady Jaina. Anyway, like I said, I'm a balanced druid main, and this video is for ranged players to get a point of view and a slight commentary on what they might not think of when they're first progressing the fight. Might also be some Boomkin specific advice about, maybe a Bark Skin, Wild Charge, Innervate, Incarn, things I did right, things I did wrong, so that maybe you don't make the same mistakes. Take my advice with a grain of salt. I'm not the best Boomkin in the world. This video is not for people who want to see a rank 1 damage fight, and this is not for people who want to learn the mechanics of Jaina on the mythic difficulty. I'm not going to go through and explain all the different mechanics because if you're progressing the fight, you should know them. You should have researched it on your own. So this is going to be more or less some finer tuning things on maybe positioning and kind of my own thoughts after progressing it. There should be at the end of this, I'll put some timestamps in the description and in the pinned comment that'll let you jump around. So feel free if I'm talking too much about something you don't care about, jump ahead to wherever it is relevant for you to understand. Um, Another thing is throughout the video, I might mention Zilva, who's the other Boomkin, just because we have a little bit different play styles. He did a lot more damage to me on this fight. He's a great player. So I might just call him by name. So just know that Zilva is the other Boomkin. And last but not least, before we get started, mastery is a path. Don't beat yourself up if you're dying constantly on this fight, if your guild is wiping. If you're new to cutting edge raiding, you just got to keep on keeping on. You'll get to the end of that path eventually. But the best way that I like to progress a fight is actually outside of World of Warcraft. When I'm in my everyday life, whether I'm walking to work, driving to work, going to bed, cooking dinner, I have that free time in my headspace to think about and visualize the fight. So visualizing the fight is half the battle, and to understanding and fine tuning your movement and your choices. So a lot of the things I did in this video were choices I made while not even in World of Warcraft. And this kind of goes back to my own history as a music student when I studied music in the States. Um, I would oftentimes run through pieces in my head that I would have to perform at recitals and just see what I could play in my head. And when I got and sat down with my instrument, I was more well equipped to perform. So let's get started. This is phase 1. I'll probably skip through most of this because it's not relevant, but let's just get right into it. Boss fight's about to start, and as you see, I've already pre-potted on 4, and I'm casting 2 Solar Wraths for those Boomkins out there so that I have some extra Astral Power, can Star Surge before the boss fight starts, and get a little bit of extra damage in. This is not relevant. I wouldn't recommend doing it if you're progressing phase 1 right now. Um, and as you'll see, if you if you want to see this, I don't even benefit from this because my Star Surge comes after combat, so it was rather pointless. Um, I don't think you really need to focus on damage in this phase. It's really not relevant. You don't need to focus on it in phase 2 really much either. In my opinion, phase 3 is the only part of the fight where DPS matters as a group. In the beginning of the fight, we're told if you get Avalanche, run right because the ship is coming left, so that we might spawn fire on this side. Um, just to point out, because me and Zilva were standing in the back here, he just ran into the group over here, and there's a Shadow Priest who got another Avalanche. Because I took a greedy position, I'm going to run like this way so that this player here has all of this space for their Avalanche, and maybe another melee would have more space coming in from there. Some other things to note, if you are running to the back of the ship, and maybe you're already in a better position than I was, and you're here, you don't have to take the gateway. There is actually a great amount of space for mobile ranged to just disengage or wild charge back in, wild charge disengage, blink back in. It's a perfect distance to get back to the group. So here I just disengage back in and continue damage. If you're a boomkin and you're getting avalanche during incarn there, I would just recommend alternating your dots just to benefit from streaking stars. This fight should relatively show you every single mechanic that a ranged player can get. I think I got everything except for broadside. So just stay tuned. We're going to get to all of them. Um, there's not really much going on in this phase that you probably don't know already if you've progressed this. One thing that I like to do before she gets to max Blizzard energy is I like to re-up my dots like Stellar Flare and everything, just because if you do get the next set of avalanches right here when she, let's see, we go into Blizzard. If I got an avalanche right now, um, at least my dots are rolling. So that's kind of the thought process there for balanced druids, maybe for other multi-dot classes. So there's the avalanches assigned. And I'm just standing next to the gateways to help out players who are going to come back in. So here we had a monk die, um, just a monk DPS. I'm already casting Rebirth. Zilva on progress for most of progress also had the res trait that gives them a shield when they res and a well-fed buff. But yeah, well, he swapped off because he was the only one resing and it was kind of hindering his own progression. So I tried to res more towards the end of progression because it wasn't really fair that he was having to res all the time. But anyway, we just kind of move around. This phase is really simple. You can execute it sloppily. You can execute it really cleanly as a guild. The one major thing is that you come out of it with 0 stacks. Dip when you're told to dip at towards the end, and try to aim towards going into the intermission with 0 stacks, and your guild should be pretty Gucci. Um, Towards the end, you can even off heal. Let's go ahead and skip to the end of the intermission. I'm using my 2-minute trinket on cooldown. Let's try and skip to the end here. Towards the end, I get assigned an avalanche. We should have phased her. We didn't. Um, when you're first starting a progression here as a Boomkin, you'll probably get a 3rd set of Pulsar, the 3rd Incarn. We usually were pushing it way before that. This pull was kind of slow. So I got assigned an avalanche, which actually doesn't do damage once she's phased. So you see those land on the group, but they're not giving stacks or doing damage. At this portion of the fight, once you're clearing your debuff, you can off heal. So a lot of times I off heal here and swap my gear. So I'm swapping to the offhand that she has on all difficulties that lets you see through the fog better. Didn't really need it, but it's very helpful. So there I swap gear, and we're entering the next phase. So as we enter the intermission, I'm going to point out a few things that I did during this part of the fight. Also, throughout the rest of this video, anytime I mention a macro, it'll show up on the screen. And anytime I mention a weak aura, specifically, it'll also be in the description of the video. So right at the very beginning, I go to in cat form and I immediately use my focus macro on Jaina. So you can see I have her as a focus. The reason I do that is because Boomkins in cat form can track humanoids. So as you see on my mini map, all these little dots, even the ballistas are counting as humanoids. The red dots are the images, and when you have her as a focus, her dot is enhanced slightly so you can tell which one is her. You can't click your boss panes and target her because of the blizzard fog. Our hunter was assigned to call which way each group was going. The most important thing for this phase is to follow your guild strategy. Whatever they decide, go with that. But the main point of this phase is that your damage on the images isn't relevant later in progression. In the beginning, try to do as much damage to them as you can. Later on, it won't matter as much. People will be more comfortable. The main thing is that you dodge the glacial shards coming in because it'll be pretty annoying for your entire group if you're consistently getting ice blocked in this phase and just dying in weird places. It's no fun for the group to have to start all over. As you see here, side note for Boomkins, I had a really great setup. I had Astral Power, which I just used down here. I just searched that first ad, and I had 8 stacks of Pulsar. I don't really use these very well, actually, in this phase. I didn't do much damage. I think I was exhausted and just focusing more on like my own movement. Um, but for all ranged players, something worth noting is that if you are confident with your movement, you can take a stronger position. So here you can see that there's a a melee player. This is the Rit Paladin, all the way up here on this image. What Zilva was doing is he was taking great positions almost ahead of the ads and hard casting into them. And that was meaning he was doing a lot of this image damage. He was also getting strong positions and getting all the way to Jaina for the interrupt. I have an interrupt macro, which is here on my screen. This is meant to interrupt just Jaina. And the reason I have a macro for it, which will show up on the screen now, is because of the Fog of War, you can't always target her. You can set up a focus interrupt as well. I was just doing a boss one interrupt because of the fact that you can just spam the beam. You don't have to worry. Zilva was getting, I think, on progression, like 99% of all the interrupts on Jaina because he was just taking strong positions to get in range of her. It's important that your guild assigns the image interrupts and follows them, and probably have Boomkins interrupt Jaina. It's a good one to have. We had our Ret Paladin running around with bubbles, soaking these extra shards, as well as interrupting weird spicy ads like the fourth one if we got four on one side. As you're exiting this phase as arranged, it's important to look at a few things. So this intermission's over, but as you see, there's a lot of glacial shards still left, so you need to continue dodging. What I always do here as a balance druid is I wild charge based on what form I ended in. So this is something I visualized before we ever pulled the boss, that when I get to this point, I will wild charge to get into a closer spot for my healers and go ahead and use my first innervate. So if I'm in this Moonkin form, I will just do a 180 spin move like this, boom, boom, to get into the group. If I had been in human form, then I would just grip myself into the group. And if I had been in cat form, I would just charge up to Jaina. The reason I mention this is because, for instance, on this pool, as you saw, let me take the video back. If you look at the mini map down here, you see that we had to run all the way around here. So I'm probably in Moonkin form the entire time, or cat form, moving and damaging. Whereas this group is paused for a very long time. They're at a shorter distance. So in these cases, if you're in this group, you can off heal, and that means you're in your human form or humanoid form. So that might mean that wild charge is more it's just a simpler choice in that scenario. Okay. So entering phase two, before you wild charge, blink, charge, disengage, whatever you have, make sure that you have this clear open path to Jaina. The glacial shards have passed. You've danced through them. It would be really silly to get ice blocked here. If you have to get ice blocked at any portion of the fight, this part of the fight is probably not a bad place to get ice blocked. Here you can see Jaina has targeted either a tank or a totem with Glacial Ray. Just so you know, she can, at this point when I'm making this video, she can target totems and pets with Glacial Ray, which is slightly annoying. So the first thing I do, like I said, is I innervate. I don't think that healing is really relevant in phase one. Our healers weren't having any mana issues in this entirety of this whole fight, as long as they got a good mana potion and a couple innervates or maybe a wisdom or something. So after I innervate, the next thing I did is I swapped gear. When I swapped gear, I was always having targeting issues with Jaina. Even if I was targeted on her, I couldn't cast spells. So I'd usually just alternate my target. The next thing I did is I would incarn here, which is a mistake. If you look, my 2-minute trinket is still on cooldown. And when I originally planned out this fight, when we were originally progressing this was a fine place to incarn because we weren't killing this barrel very quickly or very efficiently. In hindsight, I could have changed my cooldown usage for progression later on to incarn maybe at the second barrel, because as you notice, we immediately kill this barrel. I double surged it, which was also another mistake. And we're moving out, and so most of this incarn is kind of movement dotting, so it's really wasted. I'm not sure because I haven't checked the logs, but Zilva probably adjusted his own incarnation to use it over here because it's a great place where we're standing still for a much longer period of time. You have your trinket back if you're using it on cooldown. So I could have used it better, but I didn't. But as you see in this pool, it won't really matter because I get a Siegebreaker Blast here anyway. This boom Weakora for the barrel you see here will be in the description because it's a clean one if you don't have one. So here we just move across the room into this corner of the map. Uh, as you see, our broadsides have taken them out to the next barrel. And also in the corner here, you'll notice our Demon Hunter Manny took out another broadside to the next barrel. If your guild has a Demon Hunter Rogue, Windwalker Monk, maybe a Mage or Double Blink, or anybody who's confident they can get out and get back, to break that third barrel early, it really cleans up this phase. So here you see I get the Siegebreaker Blast, and some thoughts about this. As you see, I used my trinket, my 2-minute trinket, wasted. But some thoughts about this position is that our guild would choose to have the Siegebreaker Blast stand in the group and bait the raid towards the wall. Some guilds opt to have the Siegebreaker Blast stand slightly outside of the group. And I guess the thought process there is that even if she targets this player with the ray, it won't matter because it's still facing the away from the group. We'd had it just go into the wall. So I have the Siegebreaker Blast. I stand here. I bark skin because before I ever played this fight, I kind of mapped out my defensives and realized that the Siegebreaker Blasts are a minute apart, roughly. As you see up here, the next one is a minute and 4 seconds. So I can use my bark skin, and that's actually a minute and 4 seconds until she casts it on somebody, not the impact. So the impact is actually coming here in 3 seconds. So anyway, so I take it out. I have my defensive up, and there's the impact. There's a few other things I would mention about this part of the fight when the Siegebreaker Blast comes in. Your guild should not stand anywhere in this range of Jaina over here. Reason for that is when the impact comes, you don't want to get knocked into this Arctic ground or this glacial ray. That's a really great way to get stacks, take extra damage, and die. So as you see, our entire guild is standing on the other side of Jaina. Another thing is, as a Boomkin player, if you want, you can wild charge back to the group. We had our priests assigned to grip these siege breakers always back into the group, but anytime it was assigned to me, which specifically on this night, I think I got 8 siege breaker blasts out of the 30 something pools. Every time it was on me, I would just call "Don't grip Partlycloudy." And the reason for that is I don't like to play a game of what ifs during progress. I don't like to think, what if my priest is not paying attention? What if that for whatever reason the life grip is on cooldown? On the other side of that, I don't like to think, what if I am lazy, I get gripped, and then later on in this phase, we desperately need another life grip because of somebody else's small mistake or some weird ice fall. So here, I just wild charge back behind Jaina, which is going to be behind the Glacial Ray right after the impact, and I'm in the group. So that's a really great way to use your wild charge and save a grip. I guess mages could blink, disengage is maybe too slow. You could maybe roll as a monk. Whatever you have, maybe if you're confident, you don't need a life grip. Here the broadsides just take out the debuff to here because the third barrel is already broken across the map. And the rest of this phase is pretty self-explanatory. As your raid progresses phase 2, damage won't be super important. So just focus on those small little details about the Siegebreaker Blast, maybe your wall or bark skin uses, things like that. And another small thing to focus on is not dying to the barrel. As you see, the barrel ring is here. And I've seen a lot of streams where boomkins, mages, hunters, they try to blink out or disengage out at the wrong or at the last second, which to me is wrong because there's a small ridge along the entirety of the boss room, and you can think that you're going to be safe by disengaging out, but maybe you clip this kind of ledge where the wall is rising. And since the ground is elevated, maybe client side you got out, but because you bumped into it, maybe server side you're still in the barrel and you die. So just be safe and just walk out. It's much cleaner. We bait the ray, and the fight continues. Um, The next thing that's going to happen is we're going to take the gateway, or we're going to walk over to the next barrel, and this is a great place to use the next bark skin, use the next defensive cooldown, and it's a great place to off heal or use a healing potion. So as you see, we immediately come across. I already have bark skin up when I take the gateway. The impact is coming in 7 seconds, and I have 9 seconds left on bark skin. Uh, the first thing I'll do here is cast a heal and try to spot Icefall. So if you are off healing here, you can try to look for the Icefall, which as you see is coming directly towards us. And even though it doesn't look like it's directly towards us, the ice falls are wider than they appear because of how the ice gets applied. So here our group calls, hey, tuck into the corner. We tuck over here, and as we tuck in, we realize the ice falls despawn, so we can continue moving just to be extra safe. Right there is the game of what ifs. Here, let's pause it right as it's happening. The game of what ifs. As you see here, a life grip was called. Um, I don't know who that is. Maybe it's a tanker, it's a siegebreaker blast or something. Um, but this grip maybe wasn't assigned, maybe it was. But the point is that there was plenty of extra life grips so that there was options to get this player back across so they don't get frozen. So if you have the opportunity, like I said earlier in this phase, to save a grip, it could really help your group, especially if you have less or no priests. Here we break the barrel, and phase two is practically over. As you're progressing this fight in phase two, try to do as much damage as possible. We were always towards the end of progression ahead on Jaina damage, so that's why you'll see me here. I waste a pulsar and I'm healing and I'm not really doing efficient damage. Um, I think overall this whole pool I was exhausted and maybe not focusing so much on damage, but more on just getting us to the last phase because we really wanted to kill the boss. Uh, so here we go, phasing into the next intermission. So heading into the intermission, I was assigned to be on the wall, and as you see on our assignments down here, we had two warlocks, a mage, and two shadow priests assigned to attack Jaina, which was working pretty well for most of progression. Um, I have my 2-minute trinket for the wall. I should have saved the pulsar for the wall, but we weren't having issues with the wall damage, and actually in voice communication, it was called by our guild leader, hey, wall damage is going to be fine this pool. And this is something I wanted to mention because if you notice here in the kind of corner of the screen, you see Zilva. And to me, this saved the day. This right here was kind of the play of the game, if you could say it, the MVP move for this entire pool. Zilva's not assigned to attack Jaina, but we were not having issues with damaging the wall. It was called in voice communication that we will have a lot of wall damage. And I don't know if this was communicated before in whispers between him and the raid leaders or anything else, but I don't think so. I think he just made the choice to do Jaina damage. And I know myself, I know I was doing like 4 or 5, 600k to the wall, depending on a pool. And Zilva he's doing a lot of damage. So if he's doing 4 or 5, 600k to Jaina instead, or even just half that, it's going to really help, as you'll see at the end, with the entire kill, just pushing Jaina that little extra bit. 500,000 is quite a lot. Um, and this isn't something that you should do. You should do what your guild assigns you to do. This is a very high level decision making play that you can't really communicate in voice. It's not something you should say like, "Hey, can I kill Jaina now?" This is just a decision made on the fly by Zilva that was really excellent in my opinion. So here we're killing the Thanos so we can drop stacks. And as you see, I have a weak aura, which I'll put in the description for canceling lust. It's when there's 12 or less seconds and I still have it on. Um, there's also going to be a macro up on the screen for canceling lust. I always cancel it maybe 2 or 3 seconds before my raid leader call, just because we don't really need. As you see, Nathanos is already dead. There's no reason to keep lust up longer. Just do it when you can. And we're entering phase three. So as we enter phase three, a lot is happening, and you should really focus on the very important things that you can do to make this easier for your group. So the very first thing that's happening in this phase that requires the entire group's attention is the orb soak. And the reason I mention this is because of my incarn usage. Me and Zilva kind of talked about these incarns a couple of pools before this, maybe earlier in the night, and he asked, "Are you using incarn here?" And I said, "No, I'm saving it for after we soak." So it made sense to us that we just saved our incarn, stepped into the orb, and then stepped out and popped it. The only other way I would have used that is if I had a Heart of Frost and I was standing outside of the group and I could not soak the orb. I would have just used my 3 minute cooldown and started immediately blasting Jaina. And thinking back to phase two, when I used my incarn early, if I had held my incarn slightly longer for when we weren't moving, it would probably still be back up right about now, so it would be fine. We had a weak aura and groups assigned for kicking the elemental because we opted to go with the strategy to leave it alive. So for this phase, we had kind of a triangle set up for the group. Let's see if we can get a cleaner look at this. We're all stacked in melee range, and here we had a kind of a triangle formation for this portion of the fight. We had the group is standing here, Jaina's facing this direction, broadsides are taken out here, and Heart of Frost are taken out here. As you see, this player here has both Heart of Frost and a broadside, which is really unfortunate, but it doesn't really matter as long as it's not on the group, which it's not. Um, the next part of this is that I want to talk about is the interrupts on the ads. We have the interrupts assigned. These groups down here are not in order, but melee should take priority. As a balanced druid, you have the longest interrupt. It's 1 minute cooldown. You know it, you love it. It's solar beam, and it's quite annoying. So when I visualized phase three, I thought to myself, I'm not going to use it on the very first one when we're moving. Nathanos has died. I'm not going to use it on the second one. I'm going to try to use it on the third one because that's when people are forgetting. That's when people are focusing on damage. That's when broadsides have just come out. There's lots of raid damage. Another thing is I used my bark skin pretty much at the start of that phase when we soaked the orb, which was maybe a waste, but it is back up for the end of the fight when Siegebreaker Blast is coming in. So here I'm going to get the Heart of Frost assigned to me, and we had a great weak aura for this. And this weak aura was when you're targeted by the elemental that he's going to cast it on you. And then I had a second weak aura that's letting me know the duration of it. So a couple things are happening here for me personally. I'm incarning, but I'm not focusing on damage. My entire focus is on this ad's cast. Is because right after he casts his Heart of Frost, um, he's going to cast the Waterbolt Volley, which we need to interrupt. And the Heart of Frost is on me. So when this happened, my only thought was, I'm not doing damage now. I'm getting out. The next thing he's casting is Waterbolt Volley, and it is my group's turn to interrupt. And I'm proud of this, but I don't know if you saw that. That was very fast. Uh, my focus was entirely on that. I interrupted the ad. So this is a great place for Boomkins to interrupt because everybody else's focus is otherwise on everything else. The next thing that happens, this is the only spicy overlap that you really need to worry about, is that Jaina is going to cast the Glacial Ray, so you need to bait it away. Our group was deciding to bait it this direction and doing a hard right the other direction. Um, the reason I mention this is that I'm in a great place to bait the ray, but I didn't necessarily give enough space to this player here. So maybe I could have been standing slightly more left to do a much harder bait on the ray to give this person the opportunity to stand over here. And as you'll see, I think it kind of matters a little bit because let's pause it when she casts ray. Yeah, the ray I think was on that player. Um, so uh, maybe it was a slight mistake from my positioning, but things are happening very quickly. So as long as you're out of the group, that's probably the more important thing. So I immediately catform dash in a semicircle around the group. You don't want to go through the group with the Heart of Frost. So immediately getting out and taking a hard right position, and my debuff wears off. So I go and step back into the group for healing and to get away from the Heart of Frosts. The next Siegebreaker Blast should go stand in between the Heart of Frosts and die, which was our strategy. And we actually had a macro for dying, which I'll put up on the screen. And this macro is for canceling all sorts of heals and shields and buffs so that you can die faster. Our warrior unfortunately wasn't able to die, which wasn't really his fault. He did everything possible. Let's check. Here, there's only one Heart of Frost up because one just ended, and this person was just assigned, so the positions were not very clear. But he did a kind of correct play maybe to try to stand this icefall. Maybe he would die faster because at that point when he was moving out, there was only one Heart of Frost. And the reason you die with the Siegebreaker so that your raid doesn't take the damage. But we had a Spirit Link Totem up right here, so the damage was slightly mitigated. Zilva calls that he can't res because he has Heart of Frost, so I cast res. And this is maybe the last thing that I should mention for phase 3 is that if you can have one res available for a DPS like this who dies with the Siegebreaker Blast, it can make or break the difference of a kill, especially a warrior, somebody who can execute a little bit. So as you see, the raid is starting to be very unhealthy, and we start kind of dying off slowly. And this is again back to the intermission phase where maybe Zilva saved the day. We had many pools in this range of 5.9 to 10% on Jaina standing in this exact position where we just died early to all kinds of circumstances. And as you see, we kill the boss with a few players alive. And I would like to think that, that extra little MVP decision that he made to DPS Jaina really kind of made or broke the fight. So anyway, that's my commentary on the Mythic Jaina fight. Um, there's a lot going on in this fight. You should really break it down and visualize what you should do personally to make it easier for your group. Uh, if you want to hear the original voice comms and see it in real time, I have it up on my YouTube channel as well. You can watch that video so you can hear the call outs. I'm muted in that point of view because I'm muted on my stream when I stream. I hope this video helped, and I would appreciate some feedback. If it was too long, probably, your comments and your concerns, you can message me on Discord or just ask questions below. I stream progression raids maybe 10% of the time on Fridays and Saturdays EU time. But we have lots of people who do stream, so you can check out our WoW progress on our website. And there's a stream section there. Lots of different types of point of views you can see. But overall, thanks for watching. I hope maybe some of these macros, some of these weak cores might be beneficial to you. And hopefully your guild will be able to kill it and get some cutting edge achievements. Anyways, congrats in the future on your kills, and thanks for watching.